Most commonly, these O-rings that are on the top here of the posts. Okay, so these O-rings are the same for each side. Also, these posts, if they get dropped, will get chipped here on the top and sometimes need to be replaced. So one thing that's very important to note about these two posts, you'll see that there's an inlet and an outlet on it. So the inlet's always going to be the gas or the gray connector. The outlet's always going to be the product coming out of the tank to the system, and that's going to be a black connector. Okay, so there are some differences here on these two posts, so they're not interchangeable. Okay, which also means that the connectors are not interchangeable. So you have to have the right connector for the right post, and it always needs to be gray for the gas or the inlet side and black for the product or outlet side. Okay, now let me show you the difference between these two posts up close. All right, so you'll notice right here there's a bit of beveling, okay, that's going on. Now take a look at this side over here. So you notice how more pronounced this is. It's a larger bevel right here than this side, okay? And so the larger bevel's on the outlet side, okay? That's what makes it to where they're not interchangeable, okay? If you are able to somehow force it on, if you feel like you're having to force it on and it's not going on, and you've cleaned everything pretty good, you probably are putting it on the wrong side or you've got the wrong post. So anyway, you want to make sure that you're careful about that. Another thing that I would note to you as well is that there's no problem whatsoever. It's actually recommended to put a little bit of food grade lubricant on these O-rings. Every Starbucks should have like Dow 111. Most of us keep that on our trucks or in our tool bags. And so that helps a lot, just lubricating that just a little bit. You don't need a lot, but just enough to help get the connector onto the post, okay? All right, so let's talk a little more about the
no passing notes in class.
keg. So this top lid right here comes off. There is a pressure relief up here. You can see the ring on this one's quite damaged. But before you were to ever open this system up, you would want to make sure that there's no pressure in the tank. Otherwise, you'll get pretty dirty, pretty messy. Maybe you take a coffee bath and that's fine with you, but you want to just lift up on this and make sure that no pressure is relieved. I have no pressure coming out now as I pull up. I know that there's no pressure in the system. I can let that down now and I can take this lid off. To take this lid off, you want to grab it here, okay, and lift up and pull backwards, okay? Now, when I did that, you'll notice it didn't relieve here at all, and that's because of that high pressure pushing that up, okay? And there's an O-ring on there, and it kind of creates a bit of a sticking there. So to break that loose, all you want to do is just tap on the top here, like that, okay? And now you've broken that seal, and then you can just pull that right up. Here's that large black seal that has to be there. Sometimes you'll find a leak on this machine or on this keg that you can't figure out, and sometimes it's just that this large seal fell down into the tank. You know, that's it. Now, before I put this back on, I'll show you a little bit about the tank. But I do want you to know that this is where Starbucks would actually fill the keg up with the cold brew coffee. All right, so inside the tank here, you'll notice there's a tube that's coming from the outlet post and going down to the bottom. That's basically a pickup tube. That's necessary for the design of the system because it has to pick up product down below. The keg has nitrogen sitting on the top of it, which is just being used as pressure to move the product throughout the system. So you might ask the question, since we're doing nitro infused cold brew, you know, is this where that happens? And no, the answer is no. This is not where the infusion of the cold brew with nitrogen happens. All we're doing is using nitrogen, just like we would use CO2, right, to push the product through the system. We're just using the pressure, okay? But that pickup tube I showed you is actually picking up the cold brew coffee at the bottom of the tank and pushing it out the top here, okay? So you can access that pickup tube from the outlet post. And what you'd have to do is put a wrench on this, okay? Loosen that up, unscrew it, and then you'll notice this little tube with the gasket right here. You can just pull that straight out like that, and there's your pickup tube. It's necessary to know this because from time to time coffee grounds get in the system, and when they do, this can get clogged up, or even worse, because it's hitting a smaller opening here, it can get caught up in here. So it's necessary from time to time to remove this pickup tube, clean it out, clean out the post, and reinstall. So when you put this tube back in, it has to go a certain way. That right there, if you give me a close-up there, Jim, it looks good, but it's not quite in on the way, all the way, and that's because the tube is not angled correctly. I'm actually angled toward the back a bit, and so I need to spin that tube a little bit more until it seats completely. And so there you can see that it's completely seated now against the fitting here, and I can stick my post back on now. Okay? So we'll just give that a little tightening with our wrench, and we're good to go. Now, to reinstall the lid, you're gonna stick that down inside like that, just turn it, okay? Now this is where it gets a little tricky, because when you push this section down, it tends to pull up on the back side. So I like to make sure that it's seated pretty good here in the front, and then when you push down, it pulls the back side up. And believe it or not, on the first try, I got what looks to me like a absolutely perfect seal. Don't feel bad if you don't get it the first couple times. It's kind of tricky. But anyway, so that's your keg, and that's pretty much everything you need to know about the keg. I showed you all the serviceable components on that. Other than that, if there's a problem outside of that scope, you would just let the customer know that they're going to need a new keg.